So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rob Clark. I'm one of the energy category managers at YPO. Hopefully you're all okay, keeping safe and well, and thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join our webinar today. Just run through a little bit of housekeeping to start with. So we've got all the microphones muted, just so that it's easier for us to manage in terms of the presentation content. But if there are any questions as we go through the presentation today, feel free to use the Q&A tool that you should see on your toolbar there, and ask any questions as we go. But what we'll do is we'll pick up any questions at the end of the presentation, and we'll just address those all together at the end. So really just a bit of an introduction really about well, why we're doing these webinars this week. I guess the first thing to cover is that at this time of year we would normally be running a large event, something that YPO call our category council, which is an event that we have for our major energy users, our customers using our frameworks, and we'll put an event on and get everybody in a room, and it's a great networking opportunity, but it's also an opportunity to really sort of like shape the way that YPO deliver frameworks, where the drivers are coming from the customer base, so that we can help support you in the things that you need to do from a procurement perspective around energy. So this presentation today is around one of the key themes that's affecting all public sector organisations at the moment, and that is climate emergency and net zero activity. So as you know, the government made a climate emergency declaration to be carbon neutral and net zero by 2050, but of course many public sector organisations made their own declarations, quite often with much more accelerated timescales than that, quite often 2030 onwards. And we know that everybody has been busy working on their decarbonisation and climate change strategies and targeting how they're going to achieve net zero, and actually in some cases just zero, not net. So some really big themes to deal with today, and hopefully we can help you take some strides forward in how best to achieve some of this. So quite often we get asked, well, what can YPO do to help our public sector customers in achieving these ambitions? And what we're trying to do is sort of build into all of the frameworks that we're developing additional value in terms of how customers can access these services from all of our frameworks, and really leverage the expertise that's in our supplier base. We are trying to create things that are cost effective and remove some of the perceived barriers around delivery. So, you know, procurement being one of them, of course. So all of our frameworks are fully compliant in terms of them being a route to market. And today's presentation, I have with me Arthur Probert from Ameresco. Ameresco are on our Consultancy Plus framework. So Arthur's going to be talking around the net zero journey that he's worked with public sector customers on. And Arthur is available through Consultancy Plus, as I said, framework 940. So if anybody needs any assistance in any of the stuff that we discussed today, there is an opportunity to access framework 940. So without any further ado, I'll hand you over to Arthur to take you through the meat of today's presentation.
Thank you very much, Rob, and good afternoon to everyone. Let's make sure we can get the slides to work. A brief introduction, first of all, to those that don't know. Ameresco. Ameresco started in the northeastern area of the States 20 years ago. We have 2 offices in the UK, So when we can get back in, according to lockdown and all the other requirements at the moment, so I'm based out of the office that's in Castleford, and we have another office which is our main, so the engineering team is down in London. So in 2019, you can see a few stats about the about the firm overall, sort of on the slide, but we're very proud that in 2019, so the combination of measures that we'd undertaken for customers and some of our own renewable generation assets removed the equivalent of 11 million tons of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So that's something which we're standing by, that we're doing what we're talking about. In terms of the portfolio of services, my focus and the focus of the team in Castleford is down in the bottom left of the diagram there. We're focusing on the energy analytics and the supply management part of the equation. Other parts of the teams are looking at various things around sort of local generation, storage, microgrids, and the various sorts of energy efficiency measures and other changes that are needed with a view to reaching net zero. And I have to say that I am conscious that for every single one of us that's on this page, that's on this sort of session today, then yeah, we're actually all in different situations. We have sort of different resources that are available to us. We have different people, different skill sets, and multiple sort of different opportunities that can be available. And that means actually that what I will do now is talk about something that has got I will say, a relatively generic feel to it. But part of that's because I can see that the solutions will be tailored. They will be different for each of us as we're going through. What I want to do is to start off with sort of a couple of things, thinking about the planning and development, and what do we need to do to put in place to turn net zero into reality. Then look through some of the options, the various tools that are in the bag for us to use, and finish off with a couple of examples of the way that we have worked with clients to get them take steps forward on their net zero path. So I'm going to start with sort of reminding myself that there are lots of different things that you in the public sector are sort of needing to look at. This plan is one that actually I'm sort of borrowing the content, in effect, from the One City plan that Bristol has developed, which has got those 6 core areas. And one of the things that strikes me here is that carbon and net zero, it sits very closely underneath the environment headline, but it's not actually there as an objective in itself. It is sort of something which sits underneath all of these things, but equally will have effects on health and well-being, on the home and communities, learning skills, and all of the various elements of the plans that need to be put forward. So it's looking at how moves towards net zero not only deliver net zero, but can also contribute and can be used for helping with other parts of an authority's plan. At the other end of the spectrum, they're sort of having done all the planning, then there will be the reporting that comes out of it. And I just thought it's appropriate to lay out in effect some thoughts on the emissions reporting arrangements. We have the various reporting structures, basically all broadly coming out from the greenhouse gas protocol, which talks about location-based and market-based options for reporting. And the location-based, we are obviously driven by very much by the sort of national averages and the information that's being presented to us and provided to us by by DEFRA and by BEIS. And if we want to do anything about our location-based reporting, then we're looking at sort of the old favourite of what can we do to make ourselves more energy efficient, but increasingly what can we do to be substituting away from high carbon intensive sources of energy, and looking at what might be possible by further electrification, by the use of hydrogen, by the use of a whole series of of new technologies, and also what can be done in terms of low carbon generation for ourselves to reduce that immediate requirement on the mains. So what can be done for self-generation, whether that be directly on site or whether it be something where there's a connection to a site close by under a private wire sort of power purchase agreement. If we're looking at things on the market-based reporting side, then sort of the contract mix is the essential start point, and I'm sure that many people, if you're not doing it already, looking at potential of using so either green tariffs or REGO-backed tariffs to be able to reduce the reported impact there. Power purchase agreements, again with new assets, could have an impact on that, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail shortly. It's clear that sort of using REGO-backed supplies, using when the sort of renewable gas guarantees of origin as well are sufficient to meet the protocol requirements. And I think there are some choices which are actually underpinning and underlying sort of these various options, and the choices are around what are the sorts of impacts that you want to be able to make, that you want to declare you're making, and the sorts of messages that you want to be spreading out is sort of in the local area as incentives and encouragement for others to move towards net zero as well. So there can be things that will come from the use of self-generation and PPAs. You get the benefits of attribution and being assured about the source of the power that's being associated there. There can be some advantages in terms of longer term budget forecasting as well that come through that. There will also be some potential things that you can do in respect of the marketing, the communications messages that you send out to the local populace, and giving people some some triggers there and some help about the ESG side of the things. That's the environmental, social, and governance. Sort of giving them clear signals that those are things that are important to you and that equally should be important to them. The regulatory protection point, I'll talk a little bit about sort of REGOs and that sort of thing that's coming along, and raise some questions there about some possible risks to think about. But all of these end up being the sorts of questions to ask yourself about what actually are the key messages and the key objectives that we are looking to achieve through in the way that we get to net zero. So said there are various options that are available, various tools that are in the bag, and which ones are going to be pertinent will again depend upon the approach that you want to take, whether you are going to be focusing particularly on location-based reporting and reducing emissions in that area, and there we're looking at many of these things I'm sure you're already developing your thinking on, in terms of how much on-site generation is going to be possible, where are the opportunities for private wires, what more do we do on the energy efficiency front, or the potential to use storage. There's a sort of I was reminded of a statement about an Englishman's home is his castle, and that may well be something which culturally doesn't help with the development of heat networks, but there's no doubt that those are going to be sort of part of the picture in many in many areas, and I deliberately didn't include EVs, electric vehicles, in the list, but just put transport in more generically. It's not only what we're going to do with electric vehicles, but potentially we're going to be looking at hydrogen or even ammonia-powered vehicles are being talked about in some respects, and then what happens with the infrastructure to be able to keep everybody on the move. And in some cases, there can be developments that can be used in terms of forestry management and other forms of land use, which will enable there to be some impact on those location-based emissions. It's fair to say, actually, that we've been dealing as a country with handling location-based emissions through contracts for quite a long time. These have taken the form, I'll suggest, of the more national policy tools. So the RO, sort of the renewable obligation feed-in tariff, CFD schemes, all of these things that we've come to know and love and cost us an arm and a leg. But they've had an impact, and sort of the policy set that's around at the moment will continue to have an impact. The figures that what you're seeing here is a sort of summary of the various emissions projections that have been published by BEIS over time, and also by National Grid from the future energy scenarios document or studies that they've been working. And there is a path downwards, not always steady, but the general trend for the scenarios is suggesting that by the time we get to 2030, 34, 35, then we could well have decarbonised the system by 70% from the position that we had back in 1718. So that's what comes through from the so to speak, from the natural evolution of the energy system. And when future energy scenarios was first developed, it's one of the caricatures of it was that there were 4 decades, and the first decade was about decarbonising electricity. And now we have people who are talking about actually electricity decarbonisation could, under certain scenarios, we could be looking at something where actually we can get down to 0 or negative emissions even by the early 2030s. So there is progress in there, but net zero, it's not making that yet. There are more things that are needed. In terms of coming back to the reporting and the options available to you, then we have obviously the options of the renewable supply contracts. That option, which is available to you through the framework. There are sort of green tariffs, zero emissions tariffs that are available sort of in the sort of through the YPO supply frameworks. And it's a much smaller and a much more expensive sort of market, but renewable gas guarantees of origin are also available, and that's certainly something which I'm sure Corona will pick up on in sort of in the time later this week for those who are there. If I may, I'm going to just make a couple of comments about guarantees of origin, in that it would seem one of the things to remember about the guarantees of origin, of course, is that they are coming from existing assets, and therefore they're contributing to where we are at the moment. But to be able to get to net zero, more is going to need to be done. There will be more that will become available because of the other policy developments and that general greening of the decarbonising of electricity that we'll see. But it's interesting to note that actually, as a country, our suppliers on our behalf do actually import quite a lot of the certificates that they they use as well. A significant proportion of those are imported, and the future supply arrangements around those will be something to watch. I mentioned about the the renewable tariff that's available, the green tariff available from Empower as well. But it's interesting also to note that that so to speak, their standard product, their residual product, if you're not going to go specifically onto a green, onto the green tariff, does actually have a much higher reported market-based reporting emissions level than would be the case if you were looking at the national average. So that may well be a factor which you want to sort of discuss with Rob and the team about what might be the appropriate way forward for you to look at there. So I have to say, in our book, REGOs, they certainly are part of the answer. They certainly help with certain sort of reaching certain objectives. But we think that they're not going to give us the answer on them by themselves. And actually, there needs to be more investment in assets, and that's where the potential for sort of power purchase agreements and although they've had a bad press, with care it's possible to find good quality offsets. Those are going to be part of the picture looking forward. Power purchase agreements, there are actually only a limited number of parties that are going to be able to participate in those for quite simply, basically for credit reasons, and sort of that is one of the challenges that there is going to be with investing in effect in new assets through power purchase agreements. But it does give an opportunity for looking at what is the best way to use the sort of spend that you do have on electricity to help to contribute towards net zero. And the agreements that I'm sure Rob will tell you, the agreements that are in place, you're able to sleeve in the power from these sources, so that it is a feature that's readily available. So we have those options. Just a quick comment about PPAs in terms of the cost aspect for them. They were expensive. There's no doubt about that. They do work on a different type of structure, in that quite often there is so you're not looking at something which is going to have marginal fuel costs sort of built into the way that the prices work. So it gives you an option for looking at some different pricing structures and helping with your cost management there. And what you can see here, the blue line historically is what BEIS has reported as wholesale energy prices. Going forward, it was their forecast from the latest energy and emissions projections that they produced. And then the yellow-orange line towards the top was their sort of higher bound, higher energy case. The grey line was the lower bound, and obviously with the current environment, then we are in and around that lower bound at the moment. But what you can see is that this is from a recent study that we've done for a client. You know, the prices that are available from developers of new PPA assets are competitive against the lower range of the BEIS forecasts. I look forward to being able to present a revised version of this in the not too distant future, when we get some more updated figures from BEIS on their views on the energy and emissions projections. So we've got the various tools that are around, and so it's marrying those against the various objectives that you will have, so both for the environment and elsewhere. And there are going to be lots of questions about the availability of capital, the uncertainty around sort of many future matters at the moment. What are the marketing messages? What do you want to direct your focus towards? Actually, will credit be a critical issue for developing some of these factors? What expertise do you already have in-house, or is it appropriate to be sort of partnering with Rob and others in delivering those? And in some cases, it's a matter of time. Actually, what do you need to be focusing on? What do you need to be spending your time on? So, moving into the sort of the section of, now about this is what we're doing with some of our clients. What you can see on the screen at the moment started as a blank piece of paper. and a series of people. I think this one actually does come from a time when we could meet face to face, but we can do similar things now, so with the wonders of Zoom and other forms of technology. But this is the product from a discussion where we didn't come in with particular questions, other than to say, tell me about your life. Tell me about what are the issues that are facing you. Tell me about the issues that your stakeholders are facing. Tell me about how they're going to respond to various to the various issues around when it comes to achieving that net zero target. And you can see, if you look around on the screen there, there are issues about carbon targets, there's issues about the data that's available, there's issues around the financials and how you're going to be able to get the business case together for investing. And what these conversations have enabled us to do is to work with sort of each client in their situation, and sort of help them create an approach which I think is going to meet sort of the situation that they're facing. We had so one client we were talking to. It's not explicitly on this diagram, but there was one client, and what it became clear was they were told that they could invest in as much energy efficiency as they wanted to, provided they ended up meeting a certain payback target, and the payback target gradually got shorter and shorter as time went on, so they're making it more and more difficult. So being able to expose that sort of culture, the sort of item which was there, sitting there in the culture but hadn't been fully expressed, being able to talk about that actually helped them move into a situation where actually being in a net zero situation, having that as the target, was something that they were then able to have the conversations with their their capital and asset developers about, okay, we want to build this into the standards that there are going to be for the future, and that helped to move that conversation on. So from those open discussions, very much so the outcomes will depend on that, but here's an example of the sort of thing that that can follow on from that. Down the left hand side are a series of parameters that the client considered to be important, and then we walked through with them a process which was talking about, okay, what's the capability that you currently have, what's the capability that you desire to have in these respects, and in effect we're doing a gap analysis and therefore finding out, right, these are the areas of where action needs to be focused. So we in this case they were quite comfortable about their access to suppliers. They were comfortable about the contract and the form that they have there. It was the ability to actually be able to install renewables on the site was going to be a constraint. So that became one of the focal points for that conversation. It then led into an approach like this, where they knew that, so they'd gone through the work we'd done with them, could see that there were going to be a certain amount reduction that was going to be coming on relatively quickly. We've just got this over the 5-year framework, the 5-year time frame. But there was only so much that was going to be possible from on-site renewables. There was only so much that was going to be available from energy efficiency in the short term. And so they've gone down a route of looking for commercial PPAs as the means of achieving that of achieving their stretch target, getting to an 80% reduction in 5 years. Talked about the emissions reporting, and I think we'll be in the situation where you'll be in the situation where there are emissions, a number of emission sources that you'll have across the estate. And if we want to think about the supply chain, then actually those emissions, they're not just in the estate, they're around the world. There will be data being recorded in various different formats, various different frequencies, from people who have got that as part of a busy schedule already, and the data can be gathered together, and it can be put into a system, and sort of you can get some insights from that. Well, what we found has been the sort of the value add has been actually looking at the arrangements for checking that data and being able to standardize and improve the collection of that. And so we've worked through actually using basically part of the Microsoft 365 Office suite. The mechanisms is there to create an auditable sort of record that helps the team so work out where they are, and how they've how they can make further improvements. I'm going to finish off with just showing a couple of screenshots from the work that we've done for them. So this is taken from the system we've developed. So for this particular client, they had 27 sites that was for us to monitor, located in various places around the world. There is actually a blue dot there in China as well. There were sort of 13 different fuel types they were looking at, and on the right hand side, this is something which sort of has been found to be very useful when it helps to be providing any reporting as well, is having that data coverage table as part of the system has helped the auditability of the system. And you can see there's plenty of green flags on there, so there's good data that has been available. Some places you've got the red flags, so either there's missing or there's various estimations that are going through there. But what it is you've got clarity about the quality of the data that's being used, and that's something where it's all with time. Obviously, you end up with more green and less red in that. And with that data, then along comes the insight. Again, can be tailored, arising out from that open conversation that we started off with. So in this instant, just is looking at site performance, 3 major sites, sort of in terms of their energy consumption. So those ends up are the ones that are focused on in the first steps of this client getting to net zero. And then there are other sites that you find is not necessarily the same ones, where the carbon emissions are taking making a particular contribution to their overall emissions, and again that helps is helping to focus and helping to target the conversations that take place. So that sort of brings to a close the sort of the contribution that I wanted to start with. I hope it's sort of sowed some questions. I hope it's sort of happy to take any questions and sort of help you sort of think about how you can make those steps forward towards getting to net zero. Over to you, Rob.
Thanks, Arthur. Hopefully you found that kind of useful, and it resonates really with a lot of the themes that you're already considering, and in some cases I know customers are struggling with. So just really a thing about I just wanted to reinforce really about the availability of support from YPO. So the frameworks that we have are available for all public sector organisations and not-for-profit organisations to access. YPO has no membership, so you know, there's no fees to pay as such or anything like that. If you want to access Arthur or any of the other consultants that we have available on our Consultancy Plus framework, there is a website dedicated for that, and the address is on the screen at the moment. Or alternatively, just drop an email to the energy@ypo.co.uk inbox, and we can help you and support you with that. I think you touched on a lot of really pertinent themes there, Arthur. Thank you for that. You know, the way that energy is managed in terms of the data is fundamental. The old adage, you know, if you can't measure it, you can't manage it, has never rung more true than on the net zero journey that everybody's on. You know, that you have to be able to have an accurate and clear, and I think you said it there, Arthur, you know, those checks, those balances, that reliability in the data is fundamental, really, not least from a baselining perspective, but equally from measuring the impact of the changes that you're making as organizations. That is key to moving forward. And also really I thought the slide where you kind of sort of gave a little sort of like timeline of ambition, if you like, of you know, looking at the various options, the asset-based side of things as well, you know, and what you can do there in terms of PPAs, private wire, yeah, having your own renewable source, or tapping into existing assets that are available, and creating a contractual arrangement to take as an off-taker. That's certainly something we're working on already with quite a few customers, that journey. And as you were saying there, it's not a short-term project. These are long-term projects that need to have that commitment. So if anyone is going through any approvals process, and you know, you might have some really short paybacks that you're looking for, some of these things don't deliver that. Some of these, there are some short payback projects, but maybe people ought to be thinking about these as longer term, more sustainable solutions. Because one of the things that we talk to customers about quite a lot is that net zero isn't about hitting net zero by 2030 or 2035 or 2040. It's about doing that, but equally staying there. You know, it's not a tick in a box exercise. This is about long-term sustainable delivery of these ambitions. So, you know, if we have any questions from anyone, we'd be happy to take them at this stage. You know, we don't have any at the moment, but equally, if having watched this, you have any thoughts, feel free to drop us an email again at energy@ypo.co.uk, and we'll take those on and respond to those.
Just thinking about something you said there. I've talked a lot about, so to speak, the engineering assets as well. I think that there's an element also in this about the people assets and people's behaviours as well. One of the things that I was challenged to do recently was actually just establish my own carbon footprint, and actually what are the numbers that sit behind that. Sort of was, I will say I was surprised actually when I found that, you know, the carbon emissions associated, so to speak, with my consumption, sort of what you might call secondary. So that was actually far outstripping the sort of the emissions that may be sort of related to keeping the house lit and warm, or the number of miles that I might be driving as well. So that was those sorts of things can be interesting little exercises that then help to trigger the awareness and trigger the conversations and get the engagement with people that sort of and other stakeholders in the organisation.
Yeah, thanks for that, Arthur. And I think you're right. And I think this is where, I mean, we talk about scope quite often when we talk about net zero, particularly, you know, scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, you know, and this is something that YPO are actively looking at to support our customers through our frameworks and understanding really sort of the impact of the supply chain. We're looking at ways that we can build that into all of our future procurement, so that becomes a much easier thing to manage for our customers, because it will overtly state what the carbon impacts of the supply chain is and what challenges we're placing on the supply chain in order to manage that down. So when it comes to some of those government-backed reporting schemes that Arthur covered early on in his presentation, you know, having access to that data in itself is a barrier at the moment for accurate reporting of the overall impact of an organisation's activity. So that's something as well that we're looking at, about how do we build that in and give that in a consistent way, reporting that back to customers in order that they can build that into anything that you guys have to deliver to. So lots of food for thought, I think, really, from that presentation. Thank you for that. I think that kind of kicks our week of webinars off, really with lots to think about. As we go through the week, you'll, if you're joining us for any more webinars this week, you'll see that that there's kind of a common theme running through this, and this is I quite often liken the net zero activity to having a jigsaw but not having an idea of what the picture is that you're trying to build on the front of it, because you've just got a box full of pieces, and it's about finding those right pieces that, as Arthur says, hit all of those kind of co-benefits, if you like. That's where the real drivers are coming from. The environmental stuff is obviously important, but you've got all the other things on that Venn diagram that Arthur showed you there, which are absolutely fundamentally important to you as organizations and the services that you deliver to your stakeholders. So thank you for your time today. Hopefully you found that useful. Like I say, any questions that you may have, feel free to send them in, and we'll deal with those, and we'll get back to you on those. And if there's any support that you need from YPO to help you pull this journey together, help you take the next step forward, or the next one after that, or the next one after that, we're here to support you all the way. So once again, thank you for your time today. We really appreciate it. Take care, everyone.